Next is the proposed revenue enhancement and expenditure reductions. These are all of the items that we had many study sessions on, came to consensus on the items, and now they are delineated for us for a vote, a resolution and a vote.
Mayor,
Councilman Eisbacher?
before we move to the resolution, I would like to maybe clarify something. At the end of our meeting, we were discussing back and forth between use of the budget stabilization fund and a potential transfer from our capital millage amount. I'd like to see a straw vote, or maybe not even a straw vote, but maybe heads bobbing before we make the resolution, because I'd strongly prefer a millage transfer as opposed to a one-time utilization of the budget stabilization fund.
If I recall, the discussion went that we were going to need the money in the construction funds to offset things coming up with the refuse collection amounts, and there were some other things that were coming up. Can you clarify that for me again, Mr. Nelson?
That was the general consensus at that time.
That we were going to need that
Yes,
next year, because remember, next year we're going to have problems with items, so we felt that we really need to use $250,000 from the budget stabilization fund this year, because we're going to need monies from those others next year. We have more problems to solve next year. And I thought that's the way the discussion ended up, if I recall. And feel free to jump in, anybody.
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem Howard,
Well, I'm not the least bit in favor of transferring those funds, and so, as printed, I couldn't support the resolution. It's a deal breaker for me.
Was that your comment at the study session also?
I've been pretty consistent about use
Okay.
of extra funds, that we need to balance the budget without using reserves.
Madam Mayor,
Councilwoman Kerwin?
I will move the resolution and then speak to it with their support.
Support.
Madam
Moved by
Mayor,
Councilwoman Kerwin, seconded by Councilwoman Beltramini, that we approve the resolution as printed. And Councilwoman Kerwin, you wish to be recognized again?
yes, please. There's certainly a lot in here. This was a consensus document. That's just on the barely I can live with it. There are items everywhere that I think some of us feel strongly about. Gee, I really don't want it there. But the idea of consensus is everyone kind of holds their breath and works back and forth. And that's what we did at those budget sessions time after time after time. So I have objections with a number of these items. However, I'm willing to vote for it, because I understand that that's how we're going to have to make sausage this time.
Yes, I agree with Councilwoman Kerwin that there were a number of items that each one of us expressed some concern about at the meeting when we were trying to work through budget difficulties that we had. As you know, I was especially opposed to having more layoffs of city employees when we are down 50 employees from 2005. I asked, it's higher than the 27, because if we go back to 2005, we have been not replacing employees through attrition through the years. And I asked Peggy Clifton to check those numbers when I was questioned about it by the newspapers about staff, and I realized that many of these items that are on here are difficult and will impact some people, some more than others. But again, I caution folks that we've been already reminded that next year we're going to have even more difficult decisions to make. And so I know none of us likes to do those difficult things. Councilman Fleming.
I was under the impression from our last discussion that we had to consider both to make our goal. Utilizing $250,000 from the Budget Stabilization Fund, I think we talked about taking a little bit here, a little bit there. I was also under the impression that we were going to have to use capital funds as well, so I was expecting to use both, but maybe I misunderstood it. I thought we were going to have to do both to make this happen, but apparently not. Are we confident that, city management confident with these items here that we will not be needing capital funds in addition to this, to move funds?
I think we can say as close as possible with revenues coming in, if revenues hold. If we take in the amount of projected revenues in a lot of these funds, there's a very real shot that we'll break even. Plus the fact of expenditure totals for this year have been cut severely just to leave more money in the general fund carryover. So hopefully with all of that we can make the budget balance.
Further discussion?
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem
On the agenda, and I'm just so I don't have to count which bullet point this is, but on the very top of page 10, it says freeze positions through retirement incentives and layoffs. That sentence to me, or that, I guess it's a sentence, is a little bit confusing to me, because I don't understand how you can freeze a position through retirement incentives and layoffs. It sounds somewhat contradictory to me, so perhaps we could have some clarification, perhaps even better wording there.
Ms. Nelson?
We can certainly reword it. Basically what it was is to freeze the number of staff positions that are available. Some of the retirees are going to have to be replaced because they are critical or key positions. But we weren't going to hire or replace some of the people who retired as well as some of the people who will be laid off. Maybe it's freeze staffing levels instead of positions.
Does it clarify to say freeze staffing levels?
No, not really. I mean,
Madam,
I wouldn't expect that somebody to be laid off, then you go out and hire somebody to replace them. That'd be kind of silly. But I understand what you mean about the retirement incentives. But I guess I must see those as separate, because we know we've kind of already gone through the retirement incentives, and we've already approved that weeks ago. The layoff part, I'm still uncertain about where we're going with that. But yeah, we should certainly clarify the language.
Councilman Kerwin?
I'm wondering if attrition through, and just skip free staff positions, attrition through. No?
Either one is more clear.
Pardon?
Either one is more clear.
Attrition achieved.
Or limit,
Councilman Beltrame?
Attrition achieved.
or limit, because you're not just dealing with attrition. Some of those people will be hired to be replaced.
Right. Councilman Fleming, did I see you signaling?
I like the idea of limit as well.
Limit
staff positions through retirement incentives and layoffs.
And that does sound like,
What we agreed.
is that palatable to everyone?
I'd make that amendment.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Beltrame, seconded by Councilman Eisenbacher, that we amend by changing the wording from free staff positions through retirement incentives and layoffs to limit staff positions through retirement incentives and layoffs. Discussion of the amendment? We'll have a vote on the amendment then, Mrs. Plana, just on the amendment.
Councilmember Howard?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Bloomfield?
Yes.
Eisenbacher?
Yes.
And Fleming?
Yes.
Amendment passes. We'll return to the main motion. Any other discussion of items? The motion is for, as printed,
Mayor?
with the amendment. Mayor Pro Tem Howard?
Yes, I'm still uncomfortable with the removing the $250,000 from the budget stabilization fund, and in order to express my concerns, I could, if you want me to do an amendment to strike that sentence so we have further discussion. Failing that, I could simply vote against the resolution. But at the very least, what I'm going to do is amend the resolution to strike that last bullet point so that we can have further discussions about it.
So your motion is to strike the last point, utilize approximately $250,000 from the budget stabilization fund.
That would be my
Do we have
attempted
a,
amendment.
do we have a second?
Support.
Moved by Councilman Mayor Pro Tem Howard, seconded by Councilman Eisenbacher, that we amend the resolution by striking the utilize approximately $250,000 from the budget stabilization fund. Discussion?
Mayor,
Councilman Broomfield?
question, if this resolution passes and then we have discussion about that point, then we would still vote on that point, is that correct? Or no? Does there have to be a full nother resolution for that point? I think what I'm hearing from Councilman Howard is he'd like to vote on the other issues. If this isn't in there, he can, but then I think we all should still have an opportunity to vote on the one.
No, there would be a vote on the amendment as proposed. Then we would come back to a either an insertion of another item in there, and then a vote on the entire resolution. The main resolution, because just as we
The main
did,
resolution would not include that point then.
depending on how the vote goes on the
Well, I
amendment.
understand, but then the point, I guess the question I'm asking is, if the amendment passes, and then we vote on the amended resolution, so now, if it passed, let's say it passed, everybody got a chance to vote on that without this point in it, do we come back and then vote on, can a resolution be put out to vote on the last item?
No, what would happen is we'd have to amend the main motion. We wouldn't have a vote on the main motion until we resolve this, because this is a major item in the entire
Yes, it is.
resolution. We couldn't vote on it without having that taken care of, because we wouldn't have a balanced budget without the $250,000 and the taken from the budget stabilization fund. But just, perhaps we need a repeat of why this was left in, and we didn't change it by taking it out of the construction budget. Mr. Nelson?
As I recall, that this money was used, or the possibility of using the $250,000 in the budget stabilization fund was after it was explained that there is going to be a shortfall in cash carryover in the refuse and recycling fund, and you may want to utilize that or transfer from capital construction to refuse and recycling to eliminate that deficit.
Are we going to need $250,000 of that?
I don't know
for
the
that?
exact total yet, but it's going to be over 100,000.
Okay.
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem Howard?
Yeah, just to clarify where I am on this, my concern, and we talked about this at the last study session, is I'm very concerned about the budget that comes after this, which is the 2010-2011 budget, and I want to have as much money saved up as possible to go into that, because I think we're going to go through money pretty quickly that year. My concern is that we need to work on reducing the general fund budget even more for the coming year, and not take the money out of the budget stabilization fund. I think it's premature to do that. I'm very much in favor of having a balanced budget, all of our funds, and we need to do some work, very rightly so, on the refuse fund. And by the way, we still do need to be sure that we maintain our roads through our capital projects funds as well. So my concern isn't so much that we need to move some money here and there, is I don't think that we're done yet, and I'd rather do some more work on the general fund budget then take it out of the budget stabilization fund this coming year.
So, if I understand you correctly, you're suggesting that the $250,000 elimination from this item, from using the budget stabilization fund, not be replaced, that it be looked at in terms of taking things out of the general fund in the budget process?
Yeah, from what staff tells us, I'm quite certain we're going to need that money next year. And, you know, like somebody who knows a famine is coming, it's good to store up your food because you're going to be eating it. I'd rather not eat it this year, I'd rather eat it next year.
The problem with that is that we had at least 3 budget study sessions, maybe more, where we looked at item after item after item to reduce the budget deficit. And I don't know if there are any more suggestions for reducing amounts that would come to $250,000, because the item that jumps out at me that everyone wanted to leave in was the $217,000 for the community service organizations, and we left that in there.
Madam Mayor.
I don't know if there is any large item that could be taken out, or if there are enough small items to come up to $250,000. Yes, Councilwoman Kerwin.
When we concluded our last study session, I urged that we have perhaps one more to look at this before we came to vote. And it was unanimous, sitting at the table, that everyone sitting there understood what was before us and could live with it. That's the consensus. That's what we said in that room. And now here we are at the table. $250,000 is a huge chunk of money. We worked very hard to come with revenues, to try it this way, try it that way. How much could we, together at the table, figure out? And this was our best effort. I understand the concerns going forward, but this is what we have. We need to balance, and this is where we are. Certainly the name Budget Stabilization Fund makes sense for stabilizing the budget.
In fact, that was the very purpose that this fund was set up for years ago, was in case we ran into situations where we needed to do this. It was specifically set aside for that, and everyone spoke in favor of doing that. That was on council. I was not on council at the time when it was set up, but I do remember the discussion very succinctly. Further discussion of the amendment as proposed by Mayor Pro Tem Howard-Lack and seconded by Councilman Eisenbacher.
Mayor,
Councilman Eisenbacher?
just one item. Just looking at the math, if we got roughly a $60 million, just round numbers, a $60 million general fund budget, $250,000 is 0.4%. So when we're talking this is a huge amount of money, this huge amount of money is 0.4% of our budget. So
It is, but if you divide it up into other places where we've specified money going, or in personnel, it comes out to be another hard hit. And I thought, as Councilwoman Kerwin indicated, that we had agreement, even though some of us were swallowing very hard on many of the items that are on here, but we understood the necessity for it. So, anyone else wish to speak on this? Councilwoman Beltran?
I have a question for Mr. Nelson, if I might,
Yes.
please. Did I hear you just say that with the general fund carryover for next year, from this year to next year, and I know you're looking at other methods, some voluntary methods and the like, that you're looking at least $100,000, but in essence you want the authorization to take up to $250,000 from budget stabilization? Did I hear that right?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Because in answer to someone's question, I thought you said, I don't know if it'll be 250, but it'll be more than 100 for sure.
That's the transfer to stabilize the refuse and recycling fund.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Because we don't have all those numbers
misunderstood.
in.
Okay.
Mayor,
Further discussion? Councilwoman Broomfield?
a question for Mr. Nelson. Maybe you don't know the exact figures right off your head, but as a review and my own memory's foggy. How much did we have to take out of our undesignated fund in the prior budget year, just to balance our budget? Do you recall
It was about $4.2 million.
that we took out of our undesignated fund
Right.
year prior? And then 2 years prior, do you recall? We'll go back a bit.
It's probably in the $3 million range, $3 to $4 million.
How much are we taking out on this budget?
None.
Further discussion? Who's next? Mayor Pro Tem Howard?
Yeah, actually, is that on a budgetary or an actual CAFR basis that you're talking about? It's my understanding that you're giving me budgetary numbers and our financial reporting numbers came in below those for reduction in undesignated, unreserved funds.
Yes, that was budget numbers.
Okay. So we didn't use nearly that much of undesignated, unreserved funds because we've been maintaining them. As a matter of fact, this year we're going to come in substantially below what we had budgeted, in my understanding.
Right.
Yeah.
Further discussion? The vote on the amendment, do you need it reviewed again? It's a removal of the last bullet item. Mrs. Plata, the vote?
Councilmember Kerwin?
No.
Mayor Schilling?
No.
Councilmember Beltramini?
No.
Councilmember Brumfield?
No.
Council Eichenbecker?
Yes.
Fleming?
No.
And Howard.
Yes.
Motion fails. The next thing for us to deal with, if there are no other changes, is on the main motion. Am I correct, Mrs. Plata? Further discussion before we have a vote on the main motion? Okay, Mrs. Plata, the vote on the motion on the proposed revenue enhancement and expenditure reductions as printed, with the change in the item about the limit of staff positions.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Brumfield?
Yes.
Eichenbecker?
Difficult, yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Howard?
No.
And Kerwin?
Difficult, yes.
Motion passes. I know that was not easy for any of us, for a variety of reasons. We don't always get to choose what we have difficult tasks, but I think we're all up to it. Do you folks need a break before we go to consent agenda?
Yes.
Yes, Councilman Beltramini?
Madam Mayor, it seems to me we have a regular item that needs to be added to the agenda.
Yes, we do. So can we take a break before we do that?
It's fine with me, but that would be before the consent agenda.
Right.
That was my
Yeah,
point.
I just happened to think of that just after you said consent. Okay, thank you. All right, we're in it, do we need 10 minutes?